Yeah, we've seen Coziah in a scout team jersey in the past. Didn't see that today. Is that a signify that he's maybe going to be in a different spot for this game day?
That's possible. We'll see how this plays out, this week, but that's possible.
James, you have several players on the team from Florida. Do you have to talk to them about what's going on down there? How are they dealing with things, and how are their families dealing with it?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I hate to say this, but we're in a submarine sometimes. And although I am aware of it and we've discussed it as a staff, obviously Jay Wan's from there and things like that, but I'm actually glad you brought it up because we probably need to discuss it a little bit more in detail and follow up on it. Sometimes I hate to admit it, I don't want to sound like one of them coaches that's like totally unaware of what's going on in the world, but sometimes we fall into that trap. But I'm glad you brought it up. We have discussed a little bit as a staff, but it's something that we probably need to dig in a little bit deeper on and make sure everybody's okay.
James, what's it meant to you to see Adisa thrive as part of a pass rushing team with Chop this season, especially since he wasn't able to do that with AK last season?
Yeah, I think everybody knows how I feel about Adisa and his family, and it's been really awesome, since he stepped on our campus and even through the recruiting process. So, like a lot of our guys, it's great to see them have success, specifically coming back off an injury. He's a special young man, and we need him, for our defense and for our team to be successful. But it's also great to see him, be able to have some individual success as well.
James, when you talk about kickoffs, and you said that you want consistency, what does consistency look like? What are you looking for from those guys?
Yeah, same kick that we're looking for, which for the most part we'd like for that ball to be at least a 4.0 hang time. We'd like for the ball to be what we call the divide or wider, so between the hash and the numbers, the divide between those 2 points to the sideline, so we don't have to defend the entire field. And you'd like it to be a yard or two deep. So if they decide to bring it out, then we should have a chance to pin them deep, or they keep it in and there's no threat of a big return and the ball's at the 25-yard line. We'd like that to be as consistent as possible. I think you guys got a pretty good idea last year, obviously, with Stout. All of these guys have the ability to do it. They've done it in practice, but we got to be more consistent. And for whatever reason, last game it was all over the map.
James, Northwestern's Peter Skoronski, he was one of the top linemen in the country. After watching him on film, why do you think he's so highly regarded?
Well, we recruited him out of high school as well. Big, athletic, smart. It's funny because in some ways you don't get to completely evaluate them because they chip a lot. They'll use the tight ends and running backs to chip, and a lot of people do that. When they feel like it's a matchup problem. But they do it all the time, and even with him, and I don't know if he necessarily needs it all the time, but it's just part of who they are and what they do. So sometimes it makes it difficult to evaluate him, but we know how talented he is, got a ton of respect for him, and we know it'll be a challenge on Saturday.
James, you guys have gone from Blake Gilligan to Jordan Stout and now to Barney, just turning out elite punters. What's been the key to just kind of developing these guys so that they're able to pin opponents so deep? As you said, half of Barney's punts have been inside the 10-yard line. What can you say about his performance this year?
I think, obviously we're talking about veteran guys that have been able to be consistent. And that's the key for all these guys. And that's what some of the young guys that you guys are seeing on kickoff haven't been able to show that yet. So I think having veteran specialists, Stoll's another one that just consistently goes out and does his job. But obviously it has a factor in field position. We've done a really good job in field position in the first 4 games. The punts play a factor in that, the kickoffs play a factor in that, and obviously the turnovers play a factor in that. So it's obviously been helpful, and then to not only be able to punt for average or net, but also to be able to pin people deep inside the 10-yard line is obviously significant.
James, when you go into a game, you talked about there are times with quarterbacks that you want to play a guy early. What about with the your ability to kind of switch gears? Do you go in thinking you're going to play this guy X amount of snaps, this guy X amount of snaps, or is it a feel thing as you go through and it's you and J1 making the decision?
It's same deal. We'll have a typical rotation, which with those guys, most of the time it's going to be 1-to-1. And then if somebody gets hot, and that's really happened the last couple of weeks, where one of them's gotten hot for whatever reason, and we've kind of let it sort itself out for the most part. So we haven't discussed rotation this week, but I would think it's going to be similar to what it's been. And then if somebody gets hot, we continue to go with it.
James, we saw Hunter practicing again today. Any further updates about his availability for Saturday?
Yeah, we're hoping to have him back. That's what we would like, is to have him available this week. I think he's a lot closer than obviously he was last week. But there's also things that happen in practice that sometimes make those things difficult as well. You get rolled up in practice or whatever it is. So we still got another physical practice on Wednesday. We'll see how he's doing and how he's trending.
Can you take to nail down a plan? I know that you guys work ahead either in the off season or have enough people in the Army to do it a few weeks in advance, but I know that you mentioned that you're going to go recruiting next week. I'm sure there's someone on a message board somewhere going, we should spend all that time preparing for whoever else. I mean, at what point have you maxed out the amount of preparation you can do before Saturday?
Yeah, I think that's fair. You're talking about like during the bye week you're talking about?
Yeah, during the bye week. Or if it's the same during the week.
Yeah, so we don't typically ever go out recruiting except on Friday. For the head coach at that point, and really for pretty much everybody, the plan is set at that point. Obviously, we have our routine in the hotel that we stick with, but it still allows me to go out. And what you're really trying to do always, and that's what I think makes it so challenging, is at the same time you're trying to get your team prepared, you better be preparing for the future or you're going to fall behind. You got to try to be able to balance too. And then during a bye week, you're really trying to do both things, right? I guess three things. You're trying to get as fresh as you possibly can. You're trying to get a head start on at least your next opponent, possibly next couple opponents, especially with the stretch that we have. And make sure that you're able to take advantage of those extra days. And we spent a lot of time in the off season talking to different people, looking at different models. We're probably different this year than we've been. We're going to have an extra day of practice. We have typically on the Thursday gone just a non-travel squad practice. We're gonna have a full practice, not anything heavy, more of a jog through type practice, more of a mental type practice. But we're gonna get a head start on our opponent as well. So we'll see how that thing plays out. But the same people that would be saying that I need to be in are the same people then would be critiquing when the next recruiting class isn't what they think it should be. So whatever doesn't go the way everybody feels like it should, you're going to get criticized. So you make the best decision you can in terms of building the program, and I think we got pretty good experience and history with doing that.
Going off of that, do you know when there's enough film out there on your offense or your defense by like week X, we know that they've got a beat on what we want to do and now we need to adjust, or is that something you can feel differently each season? Yeah,
I think you're doing that all the time. Obviously, I think when it really becomes legitimate is probably by game 4, because most people are doing a 4-game breakdown of who they're playing. That's when you have enough of a sample size to say, okay, they have a legitimate tendency. And again, tendencies aren't always a bad thing. That means you're usually probably pretty good at something. But if you can do some things to break those tendencies, you'd like to do it. And then, what I try to do as well is we got buddies, right, at other schools and other places. So especially with maybe teams that you're not going to play again, it makes sense to share ideas. What did we have on them? What did they have on us? And be able to use that information as well. And then you got a bunch of reports that you can run as well. Having a little bit of the extra staff that we have right now. I got somebody on either side of the ball responsible for self-scout. So we get a report, every week on Sunday, which has been good. And then during the bye week, we'll do it across the ball. The offense will do it for the defense will do it for the offense.
We saw the big hit that Sean took, obviously, at Auburn. From a durability perspective this year, how do you think he's held up so far? Obviously, getting Drew in games, I'm sure it's probably helped him.
Yeah, I think he's been good, and like to your point, the way we've been able to get him out of almost every game, and that's valuable. So far, so good. He's in really good position. Probably as good as he's been at this point of the season. Knock on wood.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.